Coming up on today's show, we're going to talk about a Broncos UDFA signing that's pretty bold and pretty uncharacteristic for Denver, and we're going to talk about that to open up the show, and then we'll switch gears and talk about the first-round pick Denver made and get you guys familiar with the corner Jahdae Barron. But I want you to pay a little bit close attention to Clay Webb. Now, this is a little bit of a mixed bag of nuts because on one hand, I don't want to completely smear the guy's name before he even steps on the field for Denver. But on the other hand, if you don't hear from me, you're probably going to hear from someone else, and I do feel like you should know all the information. So, Clay Webb was one of the best UDFA signings across all 32 teams. He was a five-star recruit coming out of high school in Alabama, went to Georgia, did not really see the field in 3 years, ends up transferring to Jacksonville State, his mom's alma mater, and he was a first-team All-Conference USA player there. But the reason why this is somewhat controversial and bold and uncharacteristic is he is currently in the midst of a federal lawsuit that stems back to his time in high school, where in 2018, he was involved in an alleged hazing bullying incident where, I don't know how to put this eloquently, you more or less forced a teammate to drink semen out of a Gatorade bottle. So that happened, allegedly. I don't really know all the details of the legal situation at the moment. It was brought to, he was sued in 2020, 2 years after the fact, and I think it's just been a slow burn since then. But yeah, knowing the Broncos' just overall track record and success level with UDFA signings and how Sean Payton is a no-nonsense guy. There are some teams out there that are willing to take talent above all else, and I don't really get that vibe from George and Sean Payton. So when they signed Webb, it was a little bit of a surprise by some because, well, I'm sure a lot of teams are willing to look at a really good undrafted player who a lot of people thought could be a day 3 pick and go, all right, well, put the, semen chugging incident to the side here, and we've got a good guard, and we'll take that for day 3 of the NFL draft. For UDFA's from the NFL draft. But that does not usually track with what the Paytons like to do. So we'll see what comes out of this. Whether or not he even makes the 53-man roster is a whole nother thing. I do think he's got a good chance at it. There's not a whole lot of tough competition at that backup interior offensive line position. And he's on a good team as a UDFA to make the roster since Denver's had a UDFA make the 53-man roster. I think the number is 18 out of the last 19 years or 19 out of the last 20 years. I mean, we've seen highlight reel Jaleel, Frank Crum. I mean, of course, Chris Harris, Rod Smith, and the list goes. Philip Lindsay. I could go on for days about this, right? Jalen Virgil. So, Webb, you guys can make your own decision as to whether or not he deserves an opportunity, I guess we'll put it. People make horrible decisions in high school. I made bad decisions in high school. I never made anyone drink semen, though. So I don't know if they're comparable, really. I'm trying to think of the worst I ever did. Definitely does not touch that. I've never been sued. So I'm in a good spot right now. I'll put it that way. But you guys can decide on your own. I'm all for second chances. I don't like cancel culture or anything like that. But this may not be someone that fits well into a locker room. Or maybe it's someone who's had a complete, revelation since then and has changed the way they behave and act, and they are, committed to being a better person moving forward. I don't know. I've never met Clay in person, but Sean and George definitely taking a little bit of risk here on a poor character decision maker. We'll put it in a polite way. All right, let's talk a bit more about Webb though. Just what you're getting out of him as a player, because like I said earlier. You put the, semen, hazing incident to the side, you're getting a good football player for a UDFA. Here's what Dane Brugler from The Athletic said. From his college tape to his Senior Bowl performance, Webb has stood out consistently because of his play strength, fitting his hands, and working his feet to stabilize the block. When his technique isn't right, he can get stood up at times in pass pro or overextended in the run game. Playing with consistent balance will be key for him at the next level. I mean, there's no perfect prospect in the draft, and you definitely aren't going to find anything close to that in day 2 / 3 and after the draft. But Webb, I think, has a real chance of pushing guys like Will Sherman, Nick Garagillo, and Alex Forsyth, a couple of UDFAs and day 3 picks themselves over the last few years. So I would not rule out Webb taking one of those 53-man roster spots. Like I said earlier, this is a good team to be as a UDFA, and it's a good position. Now, some people think that Webb is going to project best as a center, and this is definitely a good spot to be as a UDFA center because you're not sitting behind some Pro Bowl or All-Pro center, right? You've got Luke Wattenberg as your biggest competition. Fifth-round pick a few years ago from Washington, who last year started for the Broncos after taking over from Lloyd Cushenberry. Pro Football Focus ranked him 18th out of 40 qualifying centers, so we're talking a roughly middle-of-the-pack kind of guy. Way better in pass protection than run blocking. And I think if you had to pick one to – usually centers are better run blockers than pass protectors, but I'm guessing a coach, if you had to have one over the other, he would take a pass protector simply because he doesn't want to see his quarterback get hurt. But knowing how piss-poor Denver's run game was last year, if we can see Webb come in here and really start to shine as a run blocker and hold his own as a pass protector, that could get him on the inside track to, competing for that starting job at center. And like I said, Denver's running back room, while it sees a very, new face added to it in second-round pick R.J. Harvey, it's got its work cut out for it. It has to be better next year. It was one of the worst run games in football last year. I had zero confidence going into the last third of the season that if Denver had the lead and had the ball, they could effectively run the ball on first, second, and third down to kill the clock. And then we saw that opportunity in the Bengals game, right, where they got the ball. I think it was Bengals game. They got the turnover in overtime, at the end of regulation, could not run the clock out. So hopefully, with an improved running back room and maybe a new starting center, this run game will get back to what it was. I mean, it's been a little while since it's been towards the top, but what it was with peak Melvin Gordon coming over from LA/San Diego, and even further back when you had like CJ Anderson and Ronnie Hillman taking the rock. So do you think the 60th overall pick is going to lead the team in rushing yards? I'll say yes. Why not? The bar can't be too high. I mean, McLaughlin was the second leading rusher last year, and he had less than 500 yards on the ground. So for R.J. Harvey as a rookie to get to 600, that's not asking a whole lot. I'll take Y for yes in the comment section below. I do want to switch gears now and just completely talk about a different subject. No Seaman related. It's all about Jahdae Barron, and that's the first-round pick for Denver because this was, I wouldn't say a controversial first-round pick, but a surprising first-round pick. And I feel like you guys should know everything there is to know about maybe a future Pro Bowl player in the secondary teaming up with Pat Surtain for hopefully years to come. Now, speaking of Barron, if you want to get his jersey, go to chatsports.com/Barron. We've got that rookie jersey available for pre-order. Once his number is selected, they will mail that jersey out to you, but you can order it right now. So go to chatsports.com/Barron. I put that link in the comments and description of today's video. All right, here's what Bleacher Report had to say on Barron as a player. Jahdae Barron is a highly versatile defensive back with the ability to play multiple positions, including cornerback, nickel, and safety. Standing at 5'11 and nearly 200 pounds, Barron has demonstrated the instincts and adaptability needed to contribute in almost any role within a defensive backfield. Known for his physicality, high motor, and football intelligence, Barron has shown that he could impact the game in both the run and pass game. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall from picks 14 to 20 for Denver when Miami passed on Barron, which a lot of people thought would be the pick. You got to envision Sean and George Payton had a plan in place to go with, say, Omari and Hampton. And then if you and I all preach best player available, we got to stay true to it. When you're at pick 20 and you see a guy that a lot of people thought had a chance of sneaking in the top 10. And it's not like he falls because the day before the draft he pulls a Laramie Tunsil. No, he just fell for probably no good reason at all, other than teams having a slightly different positional need and going that route. And Denver there at 20 goes, yeah, we need help at running back, and I would have loved Omari and Hampton, and it's going to stink playing him twice a year, and Genty. But it's going to hurt a lot less when hopefully Barron and Pat Surtain form a no-fly zone in Denver, like they had with Aqib Talib and Chris Harris Jr. and so many other great DBs like Champ Bailey 10-plus years ago at this rate. So here's some background on Barron. 5'11", 194 pounds, and like Bleacher Report said, it's the instincts that really jump out to me. He had 5 interceptions last year for the Longhorns en route to winning the Jim Thorpe Award, which is the college football best defensive back. Now, he is not the most physically gifted athlete. And let me back that up actually for a second. He's a very good athlete, of course. But when we talk about first-round picks, usually there's like a tier of like great athletes and then freaks. He's not a freak. He's not someone that was like made in a lab, but he's not, below average speed or anything like that. And he is a bruising DB as well. For 5'11", you might expect him to, not be the biggest enforcer, but maybe just be a pure ball skills guy. No, I was talking to my good friend Jeffrey Cooperstein, who's a Texas fan here at Chat Sports, and I was like, all right, give me the rundown on Barron. And I already knew a little bit about him, but I wanted a fan's insight. When he led off with, dude's physical, I was like, whoa. I thought you'd say the 5 interceptions. But it's the physicality that you thought of first with him. And then on top of that, the ball skills. Yeah, it's hard not to be romantic about this pick now that, we've had a few nights of sleep on it. And if you fall in love with R.J. Harvey, you can go, hey, what's better? Hampton in round 1 and then some random DB in round 2? Or potential Pro Bowler in round 1 and then a solid at worst back in round 2. Now, when it comes to where he's going to play at the next level, I think it's going to be at that nickel slot position. At Texas, you can see they moved him all over the defense. He played the star role for them. So a little bit of safety, but probably not. Outside corner, 679 snaps. Slot corner, 122 snaps. In the box, 142 snaps. Oftentimes, college coaches will do what's best for the team and not what's best for the player's draft profile. So it's not uncommon for a team to go, hey, you are our best corner. We're going to put you outside because that's where the opposing team's best receiver is going to be. Then you get to the pros and you're like, well, we don't need you outside anymore. We have Pat Surtain to take care of that. But we think while you would be a good outside corner, you're going to be a great nickel corner. And I think that's where you can expect to see Barron to play the most. Now, one reason why I was a little taken back by the pick is because you've got some, good inside corner play. But he is, by far, the most versatile DB in this draft class. And with the direction that NFL offenses are headed with more 3 wide receiver sets, well, that just calls for more nickel defense. And that's where Barron can be an excellent Swiss Army knife. Where if an injury were to pop up like Riley Moss last year, you don't have to turn to Damari Mathis, right? You don't have to go with a veteran. No, instead, you kick Barron outside, and then you've got Ja'Quon McMillian back on the inside. So looking at Denver's just overall defense here, what they've got going at the secondary, they got Pat Surtain and Riley Moss outside, and now you've got this elite secondary with Ja'Quon McMillian at nickel still, Brandon Jones and Talanoa Hufanga. I think this is going to be one of, if not the best secondary in the National Football League. So I can't wait to see it unfold. It'll be a fun competition, though, between Barron and McMillian for that starting nickel position because I always felt like McMillian showed us enough the last 2 years to believe, hey, this is someone that doesn't need replacing. Look at the production he's had from his 2 seasons as a starter ever since K'Wan Williams went down with an ankle injury in 2023 training camp. 4 interceptions. He's got some pick six. He's got some forced fumbles. He's got a lot of big plays in that time stretch. So I like McMillian. By no stretch am I trying to rush him out of the starting lineup. But if Denver feels that, hey, Barron's going to be a long-term upgrade for us and corner is just a cornerstone piece. So if we can find a great one in round 1 when we're already picking in the back half of that round, we can't pass up on that opportunity. And I can understand that since we always preach take best player available. If Barron went to the Steelers at 21 and ends up being a 2 to 3 time Pro Bowler with them, people are going to be upset the Broncos passed on a great corner. People aren't going to rationalize it in 10 years by saying, well, don't you remember Ja'Quon McMillian? No, that's not usually how those conversations go. So who do you think should be the starter for Denver at that nickel spot? Jahdae Barron or Ja'Quon McMillian? Which, by the way, I don't know if you know this, he has changed the pronunciation of his name. So it was Jahdae in college, and now it's like a Ja. So Jahdae Barron or McMillian. I think McMillian's going to be on the inside track to start week 1 because he hasn't been a liability or anything like that. He's been, a veteran, and he's been good. So I'll lean towards McMillian, but things can change in training camp. All right, that will do it for us on today's episode. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, and I'll see everyone later with our live coverage, our live show. No more coverage of the NFL draft, but our live show going into the week after the NFL draft.